Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and today we have my first Marvel Snap deck list. This is the list that I've been playing a lot, and I've been playing a lot of Marvel Snap in the last week or so. So I think this is probably one of the best, if not the best, kind of pool one deck list to be running and be grinding with. You've probably seen a lot of people play this against you as well, and I think it's just a very, very strong list. So we're going to talk about just the core cards, my example deck list, as well as some pool 2 and 3 cards you could use to upgrade it, as well as a couple other things just to kind of go over this list. So just kind of wanted to have like a big guide for anyone who's interested in playing this list in general, and I think it's, again, the best list to be grinding and climbing with the ladder on it, at least with this patch and kind of everything else. So what makes this Devil Dinosaur so good? It just has an ongoing +2 power for each card in your hand. So essentially this means that this, at the end of the game, if you have 7 cards in your hand, you play this as your last card, then it's you have 6 cards in hand, so you get +12. So it's a 15 on a 5, which is probably one of the, if not the best statted card just verbatim in the game right now. It's very big. This can win a location all by itself pretty easily a lot of the time, and there are also some ways for you to copy it and be able to play 2 in one game, as well as there's some ways for you to be able to have a 7-card hand at the end in some weird scenarios to make it a 17 as well. So we're just going to go over the core cards, I think, for the list as well. This is going to be a pool 1 deck list as well. So for pool 1, I think the core cards, we do have Mantis. On reveal, if your opponent played a card here, you get to draw a card from their deck. This is really good for also just removing threats from your opponent's deck as well, but just being able to use this to keep your hand size healthy. That's kind of like most of these cards, is either having ways to just keep drawing cards so your hand size is always like around 5 or 6, or being able to kind of disrupt your opponent in a way. So Cable, pretty much the same thing. It's just cost 2, but it's a guaranteed draw, but it's from the bottom of the deck as well. But this could also grab some stuff. And something just inherently good with a deck like this is that you always will have cards in hand. So even if you don't go the Devil Dinosaur route, depending on what like locations happen, what your opponent's playing, you just have a bunch of randomly generated cards that you get to add to your hand that if you don't use them, they're just options that could win you the game on the spot just because of how this kind of works. So we do have Sentinel as well, just being able to play and then play another dude every turn. This is really handy. Again, very good for keeping our hand size kind of big. And then probably the most important card with the deck is Moon Girl. I think it's required. I know some people don't play this, but I think this is super good for what it is. Essentially, you just play it on turn 4, and then you double your hand size. There is a hand limit in this game for 7, and then so if you have 4 cards in hand, it will copy the 3 left ones, and then the one on the far right, the middle one will become the middle one essentially. So there are some ways that like Devil's Dinosaur won't get duplicated if you play Moon Girl, depending on how many cards you have in your hand too. So you do have to be a little bit aware of that as well. But if you draw the Devil Dinosaur early game, you're usually in a really good spot, because it doesn't matter if the Moon Girl is all the way. If you have 6 cards in hand and you play Moon Girl, it's going to be the first card you copy, and you get to do that. So Moon Girl on 4 and then Devil Dinosaur on 5 and 6 is usually the kind of way that this deck kind of works. That's just like your best generic play for it, and I think Moon Girl is really good. And then I do like White Queen as well, even if you don't get a Moon Girl on turn 4. And again, you have to kind of get Moon Girl on turn 4 unless there's any like energy shenanigans going on, because you do need to do that. This just kind of lets you know, one, it lets you draw a card, but this lets you know what's in your opponent's hand most of the time. So if you draw this and you see a big 6 drop in their hand, you know that might be an option for them. It just gets you a lot of information, especially since you play this on 4, you can play Devil Dinosaur on 5, and then you can play whatever like 6 drop you get from your opponent's hand as well. So this is really flexible. It's also a 4/6, which is pretty highly statted for a card like this, and I think it's very helpful for you. So that's kind of like the base cards for it in my mind. And the list that I've been grinding with on my own is this guy here. So we do have the Mantis. Nightcrawler is just too good to not run most of the time, especially since we're in a deck that sometimes we just have like one big boy on one location. This kind of just helps you move around. I do like Quicksilver in this list. I know he's kind of a bad card, and I don't want you to unclick from the video as soon as you saw this card. But here's the reasoning for it. And I kind of want to talk about America Chavez as well. More times than not, when I play this deck with more cards, I just found like I had too many cards stuck in my hand, that they were clumping it up. And normally you'd think that would be a good thing. However, with Moon Girl, you want to be able to copy your Devil Dinosaur, right? So being able to have Quicksilver that you just play for one because you know that you're going to have that energy turn one. It's just very consistent, and you get a lot of draws throughout the game, so you can really find stuff. I almost always find that I use every single piece of energy that I get every turn from this deck more times than not, which is really, really nice. So I think Quicksilver just to guarantee your turn one play, and then turn two usually happens pretty easy. We have Cable, we have Sentinel, we have Scarlet Witch, and everything else. It just comes pretty naturally, and you just almost never miss any energy with it, and I do like that in a deck like this. If you don't like Quicksilver, don't run it. Cable and Sentinel, as we talked about, I really do like Scarlet Witch. This is, I think, one of the generically best cards in the game. This can turn a losing situation into a winning situation incredibly quickly, just depending on this. Obviously, it's very random for how this works, but sometimes it just does you things. If you're able to kind of bait your opponent to play into a location and then you Scarlet Witch it away, sometimes you win the game off that. So I think this is just too powerful to not run. And if you don't, as long as you have room for it, which I think we have a lot of kind of flex room in a deck like this, I think this is a very strong card in general. We do have Mr. Fantastic. This is probably like the weakest card in the list, but he's fine. He lets you put +2 on 3 locations essentially, and sometimes if you need to win some other locations and spread it, since we go really tall on 1 or 2 locations with the Devil Dinosaur, sometimes having that extra reach is really handy there. Moon Girl and White Queen, as we talked about, and their last two, Gamora, on reveal, if your opponent played a card here last turn, you get +5. Sometimes this is just great for what we're doing. If you don't like this, you can make another 1 or 2 drop if you want. But I do like the add of it, just to say, this is a 5/11, which means that we're not always going to see our Devil Dinosaur Moon Girl, but it becomes like a pseudo Devil Dinosaur because it's a 5/11 pretty quickly, as long as you can kind of predict what your opponent's doing. And by turn 5, you usually have a pretty good idea where your opponent's probably going to be playing their cards. So I think this is just a really good turn 5 play, and I really like it there. And then lastly, we do have America Chavez. So I think this is a bit of a weird pick, but I really like a card like this for a deck that is very combo based, and especially with a low combo. And it's usually just based on how this card works in a lot of ways. So this is always drawn on turn 6 and not before. And this has some weird mechanics in this game. If you want me to make a whole video on this, I can. But the short answer is that this just means that you're running an 11 card list because you're never drawing any of these cards. Or you're drawing these cards. You're never drawing this card. So you're one card closer to finding your combo every time. So there's a little bit more consistency with that. Also, if your opponent is playing their own Mantis or they're playing the Yondu, which discards the top card of your deck, even though this isn't drawn until the end of the game, this isn't put at the bottom of your deck. This is just randomly put in there. So like by turn 2, there's a 50-50 chance for America Chavez to be the top card of your list, at least with the current patch. And so if they try to discard cards at the top of your deck, it's going to be America Chavez. So which means that you have less chance for you to get hit or not find your Devil Dinosaur for that. And sometimes it's just like your best turn 6 play. If you don't find Moon Girl and you play Devil Dinosaur in 5, then you have a guaranteed turn 6 play, which is nice. So I think it's good. I could talk about this card more if you guys want to. It's very interesting from like a consistency standpoint because of how the mechanics in this game work, but I can go into it another time. So that is my example deck list for you guys. And then, so this is a pool 1 deck list 2. So I did want to talk about some other cards for this from pool 2 that kind of caught my eye. I'm still obviously grinding up to the later pools, but going into it. So Agent 13, this is sometimes just a better Mantis. You just play it for 1, and it says on reveal, you're able to add a random card into your hand. So being able to draw a card consistently. Mantis is, dependent on being able to predict what your opponent plays, but this just lets you draw a card, and then it can be random, which is probably just as good as Mantis's, if not sometimes better. So there is that there. We also do have the Collector. So whenever you add a card from not your deck to your hand, you get to give it +1 power. So this is, I don't own the card, but with Moon Girl, if you put 3 cards into your hand, this gets +3 power, as far as I know. Mantis lets you draw it, Cable lets you draw it, Sentinel lets you draw it, White Queen lets you draw it. So this is just like retroactively a bunch of power throughout the game. So if you want that, I think that's fine. I think this could easily become 5, 6, 7 power, depending on how your draws go. I think that's kind of nice. And then also the last one is just Rhino. I think this is just a generically good card again. Like, we don't really care about location stuff a lot of the time. We kind of just hope there are a lot of like neutral, like low impact locations, because if they are, then we just win the game outright because we just have the biggest power in the game, right? So Rhino being able to destroy a foundation on top of what Scarlet Witches does, being able to get rid of locations that give your opponent more advantage than yourself, I think it's a solid card as well. I think like if you want to run both, I don't think it's a bad idea, because we don't really care what those locations do. If they're all ruins, we probably win every time because we just have a really uninteractable strategy most of the time. So those are some pool 2 cards, and then going into some pool 3 cards. So we have Quinjet, which is a 1-drop with 2 power, and it has an ongoing that it increases or decreases the cost of all cards that did not start in your deck by 1. So that would mean Mantis, that would mean Cable, that would mean Sentinel, that would mean Moon Girl, doubling your cards, that would mean White Queen. It would just do a 1 cost reduction for a lot of the cards you'd be playing anyways, so that is kind of strong there in my mind, especially for just an easy turn 1 play. We also have Mystique, so on play, if the last card that you had was, or sorry, on reveal, if the last card you played has an ongoing effect, you get a copy of it. So if you played Devil Dinosaur previously, then you can play Mystique, which is just another copy of Devil Dinosaur essentially. So that's pretty strong. It just becomes a 3-drop that has 12 power if you have 6 cards in hand. So I think that is worth the exploration there. And then we do have Colleen Wing as well. So Colleen, just on play, lets you discard a card from your hand. It's the lowest cost one. So if we do have like a bunch of these like 1, 2, and 3 drops just clunking up our hand and making it so our Moon Girl next turn wouldn't be able to copy our Devil Dinosaur, you could use the Colleen to get the 1 or 2 drops out of your hand, so you could use the Moon Girl, which is kind of nice. And then we do have Wong as well. Wong just doubles the ongoing effects of this location essentially. So if you really, really want your Devil Dinosaur to just be unbeatable, you can play Wong, and then you can play Devil Dinosaur, and then it'd be like between the two of these 2 cards, it has like 30 plus power as long as you have at least 5 cards in hand. So I think that's strong. I don't know if it's overkill, but it is an option for you there. And then lastly, we have Arnim Zola. So this is a weird pick, but it's there are some, I think, scenarios where it could be cool. Essentially, you destroy a random card at this location, and then you distribute it across 2 others. So if you're just in a spot where you don't think your opponent's going to contest, if you play Devil Dinosaur by itself in one location, you can play Arnim on the same location, and it moves it over to the other 2. So essentially for 6, you're able to give plus 15 to your other 2 locations. It's probably cheesy. It's probably not worth it, but it caught my eye, and it's just a card there. So those are all the cards, I think, from pool 2 and 3 that I've caught my eye for potentials for this archetype. If you guys have any other decisions or any other kind of cards that have caught your eye that I may have missed, please let me know in the comments. Next, we're going to talk about some good locations for this list, and just some locations I think that if you see these on like turn 2 or 3, you probably feel kind of safe to hit that snap button if you've got a decent hand. And they're just really good locations for us. We don't honestly, neutral locations again are probably the best for us, but you do have to. I don't know. Some of these are quite good. So first is Atlantis. If you only have 1 card here, you get to increase the power. So if you only play a Devil Dinosaur here, and you're going to find a theme that most of these locations really thrive on only playing 1 card at it, Devil Dinosaur is the best. So like it just becomes 20 power pretty much by itself if it's only on Atlantis by yourself. So that's pretty good there. Cloning Vats. This is just a free Moon Girl for us. So whenever you play a card here, you play a copy into your hand. So you play Devil Dinosaur here, you probably win that location, and you can play another one next turn, you'll probably win that location too. So Sinister London, this is kind of like Cloning Vats, but you just get to randomly place it around anywhere. So you play Devil Dinosaur here, it's a 15, you put it randomly into one of your other locations, and if you Moon Girl into that, that means that Sinister London will have at least 30 power, and then you have 15 power twice randomly across your other 2 locations. So you probably, if you see Sinister London and you see your combo, you've probably won. Like that, this is like probably one of the best cards for our list right here. Space Throne is super good for us since we are generically just the largest, the largest card that can exist by itself, more or less. There is some setup obviously, but this is probably the largest you can ever make a card consistently in this game, and Space Throne just means that, oh, I win this because the Devil Dinosaur will sit on that Space Throne. So that's another good location for us. And then we also have Monster Metropolis as well. Just if you're winning the location, or sorry, the highest cost card is a +3, so you just get to do some good stuff here. There's some other locations, right, like Nexus, which I didn't include, just being able to only put cards, your Devil Dinosaurs, on this location, and you spread the love to your other locations feels pretty good. But these are just some generically, I think, good ones that help us out. Just the theme of, well, if I get rewarded for either one, playing only one guy at this location, or two, playing only powering up this location and getting the benefits from it, I think they're good ones for us. And then lastly, some counter cards for this deck. If you've been playing against it on ladder a lot and you don't like playing against it anymore, here are some cards to kind of consider to help you out for it. So first is Gambit, and these are just cards from pools 1, 2, and 3. So they're not necessarily all pool 1 cards, but Gambit, you just play it, you discard a card, and you randomly destroy one of your opponent's cards on this location. So if your opponent's just playing Devil Dinosaur on one location and they feel that they're going to win that location and not focus on the other ones, you can Gambit, you destroy it for free, and for 3, and then you're 1-0. So that sometimes can help you out there. And then next up we do have Shang-Chi. So this is like the best one, honestly. It's really, I've lost to this card so many times. So when you play this on reveal, if there's any cards on your opponent's side that are 9 power or more, you just destroy them. You destroy all 9 powers or more, which is every Devil Dinosaur. Now, you do have to be careful on who gets to do the reveals first. So obviously, if you are going first, if you reveal your cards first, then your opponent can Shang-Chi on their second reveal and pop it. But if you are revealing second, you're pretty safe to Shang-Chi all the time, so don't worry about it as much. But that is this. I've lost to this card just coming out and just losing to it, so you do have to be a little cognizant for it. And lastly, Enchantress, it just turns off all ongoing effects. So it just turns your Devil Dinosaur back into a 5/3, and this is a 4/4. So inherently, this will beat it at a location. So you do have to be careful with that. But that is going to be the video for you guys today. I don't know if this was the right amount of information, not enough information, or just too much information on this kind of stuff. But I do enjoy this deck. I do enjoy this game. And I think this is, again, probably one of the most consistent lists that you can be running right now if you want to be climbing and get some of those ranks. So that is going to be it for me. I appreciate you guys so much for watching. Let me know if you guys want any other Pool 1 or plus deck list for this game. And I'll catch you all next time.
Damn it. Damn it.